Contract formation generally begins with one party presenting an offer and the other party accepting its terms or presenting a counteroffer, which the original offeror can then accept. Acceptance can take many forms, but what about silence or inaction? The Missouri Court of Appeals considered whether a would-be homebuyer accepted a counteroffer that extended the closing date by never explicitly rejecting it in Pride v. Lewis. After moving to a farm, Missouri couple Andrew and Joyce Pride placed their house on the market and found a tenant willing to rent the house until it sold. Through his realtor, Larry Lewis offered the Prides a contract to buy their house for $55,000 with an earnest money deposit of $1,500 and owner financing. They rejected that offer. Again, through his realtor, Lewis offered the Prides a second contract to buy their house, this time with traditional bank financing instead of owner financing. The second contract was signed by Lewis and specified a closing date of May 15th. The Pride signed the contract, but they changed the closing date by hand to June 1st and initialed the change. Lewis neither asked the Prides to return his earnest money deposit nor contacted the Prides to say no to the extended closing date. But when June 1st arrived, Lewis failed to appear for the closing. The Prides placed their house back on the market and started looking for a tenant to replace their previous one, whose lease had already been terminated. Unfortunately, the Prides never found a new tenant, and when the house finally sold about a year later, it sold for just $40,000. The Prides sued Lewis for breach of contract in Missouri State Court, seeking damages for the difference between the contract price and the actual sales price, lost rent, and attorney's fees. The trial court found for the Prides, awarding them almost $21,000 in damages. On appeal to the Missouri Court of Appeals, Lewis argued that the Prides made a counteroffer by changing the closing date and that because he never accepted it, there was no contract for him to breach.